Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to today's edition of We Table It. First, we'd like to thank all of you for being patient with us as we have put together this episode. There's a lot that has happened. We were to hold this about a week or so ago, but in light of so much happening in the world, we've moved it forward so that we can have lots more to discuss. So we'd like to thank you very much for joining us today on our range of different platforms. We are live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. And we thank you for joining us. If you're with us for the first time, you can like and subscribe to our content so that you don't miss out on any of our talks. If you've been with us before, thank you for joining us again and staying in the conversation. And what we do at We Table It is that we look at what's happening in the world so that we can see how to bring about positive change. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Eno Vwaire, and we'll later on be joined by our other co-host, Dr. Osaro Aigbogun. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And today we're talking about a very interesting, passionate, deep topic that affects people in different ways. And that is the misuse of power and influence and what it means. And what's really interesting about the topic and what we want to discuss today is just the scope of it. So here I have a short definition, which I'll just quickly read out, that talks about what is actually misuse of power in terms of when somebody has it, what does it mean when they misuse it? And basically, it means when somebody in authority or a higher position within a hierarchy uses that position to take advantage of people, coerce them, or harm them. And you'll see it in different settings, including psychologically, physically, financially, as well as sexually. It can occur in the workplace, it can occur at home. In fact, it can really occur anywhere. And that's what I'd like to discuss today. So before I move on to the next step, I'll ask Eno. Eno, is there anything you'd like to add on about how you understand the misuse of influence and power?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Like my co host has just stated, we are doing misuse of power. All right, so this topic is long overdue. We apologize for not coming on earlier, but with around us, we think, yes, this is the right time to talk about it because we want to see how we can, inspire change in our societies. All right, how do I see the word the misuse of power? This is a situation that is quite prevalent in almost all communities. It just varies in the degree of, I use the word intensity or its, occurrence, and how this society allows me see a lot of this happening in different sectors of the society, different sectors of the economy. A lot of people have been given power to use in the right way. They actually misuse it. We see that in the religious setting. We see that in the political or the government setting. We see that even in the family unit. We see even celebrities misusing the power and the influence that they have. All right, so we are going to be talking today about this because some of them do not even understand that they wield so much power and they should use this power in a very positive way. So yes, when we are done with this today, a lot of people understand that they have power and have been misusing power because a lot of people are under the influence of their jurisdictions, however they operate. So yes, we'll be talking about it. So I see it as people having power or people who have certain influence over specific groups of person and not using this power, I mean, appropriately. So thank you, Valerie.
Thank you so much, Eno. Thank you for sharing that. And also just reminding me the perspective and scope of what we're talking about. And I think as we dive into this topic, maybe what would be prescient for our audience is to let them know, how did we even come up with this as something to discuss? And in our discussions in talking about power and what's happening around the world, it became evident that in today's world, there's stories that are coming out, information being shared about individuals who have misused their influence and power. For example, we've got stories of wealthy
Yeah.
celebrities who take advantage of people when they get to the peak of their careers, take advantage of them in different ways, maybe from refusing to support them when they need support to go up the ladder. In some cases, there's a lot of sexual abuse that happens in the entertainment industry. And just looking at how wealthy celebrities treat people and then misuse the power that they've earned or been given when they get to a certain level. And we also talked about, and what we'll explore today a little bit deeper, is misuse of power in religious institutions. How is it that leaders of, you know, in churches, in other religious institutions, I think we're most familiar with churches. How is it that when they get to a level of influence and power, the mandate seems to change, the way they treat people seems to change, their expectations change. And maybe let's start off touching on that in light of what happens in religious institutions. And Eno, I'll ask you, in Nigeria, what is it like in religious institutions that sort of tend to grow very fast? What happens with the leaders and how they then begin to behave in some cases?
Okay. Thank you, Valerie, for that one. It's a very tricky area to discuss for me because I'm one who is quite immersed in religious. Yeah, you know that very well. I love to do things that are, anything that has to do with, relating with people when it comes to Christianity. And, you said something that we are most familiar about, Christianity. However, this does not just cut across Christianity alone. We have uh, the Muslims, we have other religious institutions where their leaders or people in power actually misuse this power. But for the sake of this particular conversation, I would just concentrate on the one I know, that the Christianity. All right. We've had lots of cases. I can cite examples, but for I don't know. I want to be very, very careful here. We all know that we see a lot of examples of misuse of power by religious authorities. Somehow, all humans want to have this connection with God, and we have this orientation to do so going through the church, going through the religious leaders, the pastors, prophets, the imams, in case of those who are Muslims, and then go through the priest, whatever religious affinity you are of, and at the end of the day, these people wield so much power because they tell you this is what God is saying. They are the one that are the authority. They read the scripts, the scripture, the book, the good books, and they tell you, they try to interpret the mind of God through these books. And that makes it like the word is sacrosanct, whatever comes out of their mouth. So people are just looking, towards whatever they say. They have so much power that they can control even the affairs of families. They can control who marries who, and there are lots of it's the dynamics is it's quite crazy. Normally, they are supposed to be a supporting institution or system with what we have on ground in our societies, maybe the law, and they're supposed to work hand in hand to make sure things are running smoothly. If I give an instance, we have the weddings you conduct in the court, and you now have the same weddings in the church, and you can have just in the church, and you will get the same certificates that you are supposed to get in the court. So yes, they should work pari passu, hand in hand. But what we are having today is we have people who abuse these powers. Now, a lot of people, because of maybe economic situation, they tend to want to pray, or they want to seek the face of God, and to make their lives better. So, because of that, they tend to go see a pastor, they see a prophet, and going to make these visits, they are actually monetized. Unfortunately, this is the situation. We have heard many cases where these people are monetized because they are coming in for help. Please, Pastor, pray for me. Bishop, pray for me. Prophet, pray for me. I'm having these issues. I'm having that issues. And we are being told to come with some amount of money. We need to buy some anointing oil. We need to buy this so that we can make some prayers for you. We need to buy. And most of those things that they are requesting for prayers to be done are completely out of the doctrine of Christianity. Now, these people do not understand this. They are naive. They are ignorant. Why? Because they do not study these books for themselves. They are just used to, seeking, help, going to meet the one who they think is a superior, maybe the anointed or whatever. So because of this influence, these people they do a lot of crazy things. We see crazy things to the extent of sleeping with people's wives, destroying marriages, which is not supposed to be so. So this is what we are looking at today. In the case of religious institution, we have a lot of ills going on in our churches, in our mosque, in our worship houses. If you are into the other religion other than Christian and Christianity and Islam, we see a lot happening, a lot of rituals happening that involves lives. This is misuse of power. The people who should trust you, the people who should, believe you, that you are close to God, that they could hear God from you or through you, end up being used, end up being monetized because of that misuse of power. So this is what we are looking at today in the religious aspect. I think that answers the question, Valerie.
Oh gosh, Eno, yes. And you've answered it so well. And as you were talking, what came to mind for me in what I've heard, because I think a lot of these things, you sort of read about them on the internet. So it's not first-hand experience. But what came to mind to me was as people who are looking for a higher power, a God that they really want to believe in, they want a change in their lives, they want a miracle to
Yeah.
happen, they want to prosper, it becomes easy to listen to somebody who is telling you something that you want to hear. And if that somebody tells you the way to get there
Yeah.
is do this, and this is what you really want, then it becomes,
Mm.
you start to understand how people then start to follow certain people who present themselves as having power and influence. And an example of something
Yeah. And one more
radical,
thing, Valerie.
yeah, I
Mm.
remember reading
So one
about,
more thing. Sorry, I had to
oh
cut
gosh,
you. I
yes,
think there is a correlation. Sorry, my darling.
mm,
There is a correlation between misuse of power or whatever use we have in the religious institution and the economy. All right. So I have a friend tell me something like, it is because the economy is not stable. That's why we see a lot of these ills. Because when we benchmark with the Western world, where we have relatively things more stable, in the US, where they have a working system, in UK and everything, you do not see these cases. People are
mm,
not going to meet the man of God to say, pray for me. I need to get something doing. I need God. These things are already put in place. Okay. So since these things are put in place, there is no need for them to go and start asking the man of God for to see through one situation or to pray for one situation. So yeah, I just want to establish this truth that there's a correlation between the economic situation of any society and the ills you will find in the case of misuse of power. as it relates with the religious institutions.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, Eno, yes. Agreed. Oh my good. Now you've reminded me a second thing. So let me save the first thing. In terms of
Okay.
radicalization, I remember reading on the
Okay.
news, and it must be several years ago online. This was something that was happening in Southern Africa. I don't remember which country exactly, where the pastor had convinced the congregants that they should eat grass, and they were eating the grass. And that is an example
I
where,
saw
as why, how, what, what is the purpose? But this person has enough power that he can convince a rational, sane human being to go down on their hands and knees and eat grass. And so this
I saw
power
that.
comes, yeah, they start telling people to do things. And I think that's how we see people entering a cult where they're all doing something that for the rest of us who are not in that space, we're wondering, why. In Kenya, we've had instances of cults that have come up where people will go in and they will fast and fast and fast until they pass on. And it doesn't make logical sense, but for them, they have been told something they believe in that they're now working towards. And as you were talking about economics, it reminded me of when we were both living abroad together several years back, and as young students and looking for a place of worship. And what I saw in terms of progression of how places of worship would come up, there would be, this is just as an example, so I'm not pointing to any specific one, but
Okay.
somebody would likely come up and say that they want to start a place of worship, and there would be somebody who is presenting themselves as a very devout Christian. They're going round, they're going from home to home, they're praying for people. You meet them, they've got their Bible throughout. As in, they enroll you because of the way they're bringing forth their Christian faith. And with some time, they're able to build up and develop churches. And suddenly, the narrative changes from supporting and helping people to buying furniture and cars, to making sure the person is dressed appropriately, making sure that whatever happens in whatever situation you're in, bring your money to the church. And I remember attending a service where there was a pastor who had been invited from outside the country to speak to congregants. And this pastor said, in fact, the bigger your sacrifice, bring everything that you have, whether it's your car, whether it's your house keys, whether it's everything, bring everything, give it to the church. Because when you give, then you shall receive. And I've never seen anything like that. People had been worked into a frenzy. We were all singing, and you just find people emptying everything, throwing money on the altar, just chaos. And I looked at this and I thought, okay, so now you've given your house, and where are you going back to? What is happening here? What comes next? But I saw in that situation where you can actually be pulled into a message so strongly that you decide, yes, today we have my co-host joining us, that you actually then decide that this person, it's no longer about the prayer. It's this person. If I just visit this person, then my life will change. So in seeing that, what I saw was somebody can start off normally before they get to the position of power and influence. There's a lot of authenticity and there's a lot of genuineness, and more that depending on the person, of course, the more that there's growth, that starts to disappear and something else comes in. And I think that's when we begin to see people in powerful positions misusing that influence, because now they've enrolled everybody. People believe in what they're standing for and in them, and they take advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any insights on your experience? Did you experience something similar in terms of new places of
Yeah.
worship
So
that come
as you
up?
were speaking,
Mm,
yeah, as you were speaking, it reminded me of something that happened, something quite similar to your experience when you went out to invitation or something. Uh, I was in a church. I think someone invited me for a baby's dedication or so, if I can remember clearly. And I was there quite early, so I met the Sunday school going on. And they were teaching about tithing. That's a very controversial topic, yeah? About tithing, bringing 1/10 of your income into the house of God. And as that topic was going on, someone was concerned and was asking, someone raised up their hand to ask a question. They say, okay, we have a lot of people who do crazy stuffs, who get money through ill means, who steal, who whatever, whatever. So whatever money they are getting, are they supposed to bring in a 1/10 of that into the church as a tithe? And whoever was ministering was like, the Bible did not specify whether or not you should bring this or that. So he said, bring in all your tithes, and that is giving out the wrong information. Because actually, if we look at what the scripture says, there was a time the Lord, even still in that Malachi, was very upset about them bringing whatever sacrifices that are tainted, that are not good. You bring in spotted or something with blemish or something that is not good enough to bring to the altar of God. We saw that even in the case of, we're talking as Christians, saw that even in the case of the sacrifice of Abel and Cain, where Cain just brought in anything that he wanted to bring, and they were not so quality like that of Abel. Abel was accepted and Cain was rejected. So that's from crime you have done. What makes you think that you can bring things from crime to the altar of God? So that is that. Some people victims of this influence, I mean, the misuse of power, because they refuse to know God for themselves. They refuse to study. They refuse to do their own research. That is why they remain ignorant. And this is why they continue to be used. They continue to be monetized. So we see a lot of that. You made a reference to a man of God telling the congregants to eat grass. I saw that and I was livid. My mind, why would somebody not think for themselves? Are they under any kind of hypnosis? Don't you know that there is nowhere even in the scripture that anybody had to eat grass? If you are actually following your scriptures, there is nowhere God told anybody to eat grass. So if we are going by that, why will you eat grass? So we've seen crazy things where even those that are very revered men of God in their communities actually use these influences to do things like what they call this theft of I think the traffic. I don't want to use the trafficking is for humans. Okay, when you carry things like gold, minerals, and you illegally, illegal exploitation of mineral resources and all that, you take them out of the country undocumented. So they do that even with the private jets they used to do ministries, because no one is going to, shine the light on them. Nobody's like, this is a man of God. He's going to do his thing. So they use this private jets to ship mineral resources to sell. Okay, so like gold, like diamonds, like, yeah, we saw that in some parts. I think, was it Malawi or so, one of these men of God we saw. All right, so yeah, we've had lots of cases where men of God will call women who are looking for the fruit of the womb, who wants children, and will put them under some kind of prayers to come and do some vigils, stay in the church for some maybe 3 days or whatever. And this men of God will help the husbands to take care of their wives. You know what I mean by that? As in, take care of their wives, sleep with their wives, the wives that are ignorant, and they will tell them that they are the ones that will pass the blessing of the child through that kind of, very funny act. So many crazy things we've seen. We see there was a case of Reverend King in Nigeria. I think that was long time ago, where he even burnt some of his members alive. I don't know where they got to, at what point they had to do that. We see a lot of crazy things in the name of religion. All right, so we are just still talking about religion. There are still some other places where we experience this youth misuse of power. The celebrities themselves too, that would point hands at the man of God. They themselves, they misused their power. Let's even just look at something, for instance, like you are influencing a product that you know. For instance, we had that rubble sometimes on social media where they were really on one particular influencer who was a celebrity and came out to promote a product that actually had ingredients that were carcinogenic, just because they are going to be paid for that. You come out and you promote such product, knowing that this will cause harm to the people who would use it. You know, when you come out to
Yes.
say my skin is beautiful and I am a celebrity because I use this product, the gullible ones will go buy those products. That is the misuse of the power we're talking about. All right, so there are
You
many
know,
areas we are going to look at today.
yes, I just even want to add on to what you've said there because when celebrities are endorsing products, it would be interesting to know how many of them are genuinely endorsing in that they know and understand the product, or this is somebody who's coming to pay them. So, in the spirit of earning money with your platform, you just take it on. Because, especially, yes, the promotion of products, food items, things people need to put on themselves or in themselves, I think it's necessary to go a step further, understand what you're promoting, understand it fully before you promote, and then really be clear about what you're standing for. And Google is a friend. A little bit of research can go a long way in case you don't have first-hand information. Mm. There's something I wanted to add in terms of celebrity influencers and misuse of power and influence, and an example from Kenya. So, one of the things that happens here and that has caused scandal in the past, right, is celebrities who use their influence to sell land. It's very important. People, I think in Kenya, I'm assuming it's across Africa, owning land is something that is important and fundamental. It's ingrained in us. So when opportunities come to buy affordable land or land that can give you a profit, you find many people looking for those. And there have been scandals where a project will be sold or land will be sold, but when it comes to the transaction beginning to end, it doesn't work as expected, and people are then let down. So, in that case, one of the things I'd like to maybe look at is how much of it do we put on the influencer in terms of using their space, and how much on the maybe information that they had. Are they misusing their influence if they guide people to buy something that might not fully exist, whether they know it or not? I don't know. What do you think, Eno? Do you have something similar happening on your side?
Yeah. Why would you endorse a product you've not done a research on? I've had such kind of a case. Not like I was an influencer, but you are going to stand in for someone. "Oh, please get me customers. I have this product and da 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 da." And at the end of the day, you bring in someone, and the person brings in money just to find out that it's all a sham, it's all a scam. So the fault even falls on me majorly because I did not do my due diligence to check whether this is real. Okay, so now at the end of the day, your influence, you've tainted your name over that kind of situation, and that you are losing trust. For you not to find yourself in this kind of situation where people will lose trust in your brand, you do your due diligence. So yes, the influencer has a responsibility to do their due diligence, to do their research on whatever product, whatever thing they would stand to endorse. So it's not just whoever is being the scammer, the influencer may not know. No, you need to know. You need to be aware of what you are doing. You need to be aware of the power you are wielding. All right, so that you do not find yourself in this kind of situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Eno. Gosh, that dives me into another area which I'd like to just touch on from my personal experience. And as you know, one of the challenges, or I won't call it a challenge, we're going through a change in Kenya at the moment where our young people are speaking up about, things that they have seen that they believe our leaders are not doing well and need to be accountable for. And it has resulted in many protests. which unfortunately have also led to the loss of life. And we send our wishes to our wishes of
Yeah.
condolence to all those families who are currently going through having lost loved ones. So we really do condole with them. And I'll say, part of part of this change in my own way, as what I call a keyboard warrior, where I look for information, and if there's information to share, I'd share it. And as somebody who's getting information and learning online over the past 2 to 3 weeks, there are people who have been able to identify who, let's say, a source of information. I know if I go there to their profiles or to what it is that they're sharing, I will get information on what's really happening on the ground and what's happening out there and the state of what's happening in the nation. But as we moved from our initial gathering and our revolution, we continue to evolve rapidly into new spaces, especially online. And the people who have stood out as influencers now are being looked at for direction or just their opinion on what should happen. And one of the things that I'm seeing is people who have personal vendettas that pop up. So now there's a situation where you've got some influence, you have a problem with Mr. Y. So you start telling your followers about what is wrong with Mr. Y, right? Which is outside the scope of the issue that we are facing. Now, this is another issue that you're bringing in. It could be a personal one, it could be an observation. And then on this other side, somebody else has a problem with someone else. So they start bringing that in. And before you know it, our discussion starts to take different angles, and you see people either choosing to be with this person who says
Apples, yeah.
that person is good, or this
Or
person who says
choosing.
that person
Yeah.
bought government. And it just leads to chaos and lack of trust. So in that case, how do you feel about people who use their power and influence to leverage their personal vendettas, to deal with something that's a problem to them? How do you think that could be combated, or what advice would you have for those people?
You can only tell people this is wrong. It's left to them to decide whether or not to adjust to do the things that are right. All right. So I think that in cases like this, what occurrences of misuse of power when it comes to influencers using their powers for personal vendetta is accountability. All right. If they are held accountable for this misuse of power, they definitely would adjust. When you know that you are leading people onto the wrong path, or you are instigating violence, either directly or indirectly, and there is an authority that you would have to answer to, you definitely will adjust yourself. Let me go a bit away from the influencer and look at how this had been achievable in the case of the religious institution. In beg your pardon, in Rwanda, we have a case where the government woke up one morning and said they have to put a leash on religious institution and the way they are being spawned all over the country. They need to watch them. They need to coordinate. They need to oversee whatever is happening in the religious institution. A lot of churches were closed, a lot of mosques were closed. These are people who were prepared, who were trained, who have been taught about this accountability, and that they're answerable to some sort of higher authority. These were the people who were given licenses to have a church. And because of that, you can see from so many mushroom churches opening every corners, they had just very few respectable places of worship. So when we have the government or authority, placing their focal lens on these activities, and making people accountable for whatever power and however they use this power, of course, there will be a change. So, yes, accountability, when it sets in, these influencers would learn to, manage their personal vendettas instead of using it to influence people negatively.
I like hearing that. I like the idea of accountability, whereby
Yeah.
when you say something, it has an impact and you have to be able to own something. And as you were even talking, it reminded me of what we see as cancel culture, which I think is something that happens more in the West, whereby if a celebrity says something that is offensive or that is perceived as offensive, you see a whole slew of people decide that we are no longer going to endorse this person. We're not going to endorse their messaging, their products, what they promote. We are just going to cancel our affiliation with them, you know? And that has a huge impact on, celebrities then being able to move forward from that space because they're held to account by the audience that follows them, you know? Those are the people who will say, no, enough is enough. We are now stopping and moving forward. And I think in line with, I'll call them new influencers because it's new people who are rising up. Sorry for the background noise. For the new people rising up, it's something that they'll notice that just as quickly as you come up, offending the people who have assisted you to come up can as quickly also bring you sort of back down to earth again. Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
I
Okay.
think I'm
And
having a
now
little bit of network issues, but can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear
Can you
you.
hear me, Valerie? All
Yes, I
right,
can hear
that's
you.
right. Thank you for the
Um,
feedback. All right, so a lot of it,
yeah,
this influencer issue. Can you hear me? I see a little bit of distraction from your end. Maybe I will just leave you to attend to our young gentleman. All right,
yeah, our
while I go
influence.
on this
He has
interesting
work
topic of
today, but
misuse.
keep going.
Yeah. That's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I know that. All right. So, we're just talking about how people actually misuse power. We're looking at the influencers using their power for personal vendetta and how to ensure that people are not led astray just because of the myopic thinking of a few people who have power in their hands. And I said something about when people are held accountable for the repercussion or the results of whatever things they've said or done with their power, definitely it will be able to curb their excesses. So, on that note, we'll be talking more on. I don't want us to look at the religious institution now and just the influencers. Let us look at our government too. Um, Valerie cited the case of what's going on in Kenya right now, where there are tax a bill on tax laws, and the people saying no, we do not want this. Okay, and they're coming out to have a peaceful protest, and because of that, a lot of incidences have come up in the past 1 week or so. If I'm not mistaken, Valerie, there's been a lot of protests and a lot of people have been picked up in the streets relating to this. Some sent to jail and some have been killed. Um, our heart goes out to families who are thrown into mourning because of the loss of their loved one at this point. Uh, we pray that God will be with you at this trying time. It's a very, very sad situation that our governments will, resort to violence. We had this situation sometime a couple of years ago or so, if I'm not mistaken, where we had a peaceful protest, the NSAS protest. Nigerians will never forget that, where the youth came out en masse to protest the killing, of innocent people by security operatives. And when they did that, in order for them to get off the streets, because they went like for days straight. They were just on the street doing their thing, very peaceful. We even had influencers who came out to say, yes, we are with the masses, we are with the youths. Yes, we do not want SARS on the roads anymore. We do not want them, want an end to all these killings. They are killing our youth. We don't want that. And we had everybody come out in solidarity. However, it took a turn, just like what we're having in Kenya right now, where those who are saying we do not want these things peacefully. I believe the government is for the people, is from the people and by the people, right? But somehow they are not for the people anymore. They are for themselves, because when majority are coming out to say we want this, and you are trying to enforce, you are trying to impose your decision on them, it turns out to be violent. It turns out to be no longer democracy, because I know democracy is what the people want, what the majority wants. So we've had this situation where even governments misuse their power. And this situation happened a lot in African countries, unfortunately, where they are not being checked. People in authority are not being checked. It happens here. But in other climes, we see where before you even make any move, you would listen to once everybody's complaining about something, you would resign. You cannot be there where
Mm.
everybody's coming out and saying they don't want this, they don't want that. You are doing too much. You have to leave that seat. But in Africa, the leaders would insist that they will have their way. They will insist, they will impose their ideas, impose their laws, impose everything on the masses they are supposed to be speaking for. So this is a situation
Yeah.
about misuse of power. We've talked about the religious side. We've talked about the influencers on social media, because the social media is a very powerful media, very very powerful. When you have people who
Mm.
have followership of about 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, and they just say something, whatever they say is word. Okay, people will run with this word. So it leaves us with the question: if you are a person of influence, if you are a person who wields power, how are you using this power? So I'll leave
Oh,
Valerie to look into other
yeah.
areas of this topic. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for sharing about what happened with NSAS in
Yeah.
Nigeria, and how, yes, it started off peaceful. Somewhere it takes a turn and it goes south. And I think we're seeing literally a mirror of that situation here, where we start off peaceful and powerful, and it goes south, and then the initial power, and this is just my opinion, the initial power is being robbed from you because now it's taken a different turn. And now we are talking about things other than what the initial, message was. So being in the middle of it now.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to try and observe where this discussion will, come to a close, and we'll be able to make the change that we wish to make. What I'll say in terms of misuse of power, and our experience has been leaders who have mocked the people, where when as a person you say, this is what my problem is, and the leader will openly laugh at you. They will openly abuse you on social media. They will openly tell you that you don't have a voice because you don't have money. I mean, what we have endured as people in the past week, I've been shocked. I'm like, these are the people we elected, because how can they laugh at the people? Because we're in a situation where the country is going down. And when I say openly, they're on news, live broadcast, laughing at us and saying there'll be no development for you. You know,
Mm,
um, like, this is how we're going to punish you for raising your voices. And so it is, we look at
mm,
them, and the question for me becomes, okay, these are the people who are in a position of power. Some of them, before they got there, they would come, and when they were campaigning, it's just an ordinary me and you, you're telling me your problems of the day.
they'll make so much promises,
Yes, and I will support
when
you. I
they're
will do
campaigning.
what
My goodness.
represent us. Next thing I know, you've forgotten us completely.
It's a different
Uh,
ball game when you get in there. Yeah.
yes, and that's, I think, what's angering a lot of people. And what's painful about, I think, African economies is we do our best as people to make noise for the world to see, to hold our leaders accountable. But how long do we keep up the momentum to make sure they are accountable as they mock us and laugh at us and know, that they can in the end make whatever decisions that they want. So here, I think what I'm trying to bring out is the type of leaders, because now if we remove these ones, we still need to bring more. you know, how do we get out of the loop whereby somebody gets put into a position of power and we get out of the loop of them misusing their power? Is there any African country that you might know of that has managed to contain their government officials and their people in power so that they're not misusing it and exploiting the people?
When you say African country, very difficult to pinpoint one country to say the people have been successful in curtailing the excesses of government. It's very difficult to point that out. It's very difficult to point that out in Africa. Uh, Everyone, when they come in, they just forget about the fact that they are human first. They forget about every of the promises to stand by people and stand by their word. And I think power is intoxicating when you get in there. I don't know, maybe when Valerie becomes the president of Kenya, she might do something else. I don't know.
You know,
So, my darling, so I
I
think there's
wonder.
something about power that when you get in there, they get drunk.
Your
They
priorities
begin to
begin to shift and
But if you
change.
ask me about African countries,
Yes. Yeah.
ask
Oh
me about
gosh.
African countries, there is not one. If in other
Yes.
climes, yeah, you can say. I think I've seen some one of these Asian countries where they were so displeased because of the corruption of their leaders. And I heard that I can't remember what country it was. I'm not saying that we resort to violence, but they were what is this word? Were they were all killed. Those in power, they just the ones that they
Oh
could
my.
find something on any kind of crime. Executed.
Oh my
They did
gosh.
that. Yes,
Tell
yeah.
you.
Go and research on that. You'll find that. So
And
because of that, if anybody's coming
yes.
in, if they remember that these people are not smiling, everybody will behave themselves. So one of the measures I think they should do is to make this seats, these positions, not palatable. I mean, because right here in Nigeria, for you to be a senator, for you to be a governor, for you to be a president, there are lots of benefits that comes with it. There's something they call this wardrobe
Mm.
allowance. I wonder what the wardrobe allowance for. All those different allowance. At the end of the day, the kind of money these people are earning annually, mind you,
Yeah.
is enough to last their generation for a lifetime. All right. So
Mm.
when you take away these benefits, when you let them see that you are actually coming to serve, you're actually a servant of the people. You are not going to be getting any kind of rosy benefits, any kind of diplomatic immunity or whatever. They would definitely not be there. Those who have the intention to misuse power. So first of all,
Oh,
make these
yes.
positions of authority or governance not palatable. That's my first
Mm.
they should make it not palatable so that those who want to work. One of the countries in the West, I think in Europe, I think someone posted on social media where they saw the president on the street strolling to go and fix his wristwatch just by
Yes.
somebody, a neurologist that's just by the street. He was just going to fix his wristwatch and somebody came and took a selfie with him. You can't
Oh
have
my
that in
God.
this part of the world because your president, even if he's
Mm.
going to the he's going to be going with a convoy of 10
Of
cars, at least 10
tennis.
cars. and with some motorbikes that
Yes.
would have gone ahead of them. Now, because of this kind
Yes.
of, it's a lot of money. And where is this money
Mm.
coming from? Taxpayers' money, for goodness. We
Yes.
complain about the economy, but we are impoverished by the people who
Mm.
are supposed to come and take care of us. So when we take away some of
Yeah.
these benefits from these people, it will make only those who have the zeal, who have the passion to see things work, regardless of what they are going to get from that position. These are the people who would go in for the job. So that is one.
Oh,
Any
you
other
know,
thing you want
that
to
would,
suggest, Valerie?
I love that idea. I think that would be an ideal world. In fact, it reminds me, I was talking with a friend of mine who was like, "Ah, if only MPs could earn our minimum wage for 1 month, they'll understand how even, and then use that money for their housing, their school fees, their food, their fuel, their everything, an understanding will come as to what the people are actually talking about. And for that minimum wage to be taxed at the same rate, it could really make an interesting difference. Yeah, so I relate with everything it is that you shared in terms of how it can be different and how that position, because it is, as you say, palatable, you want to get there because once you're there, you're going to make some good money. But if it's not about that, and we do go back to serving people, that will make, a big difference, I think, for us in terms of how do we manage the people that we put in power. How do they view their power in the first place? And then making sure that they're meting out their power. As a Christian, I keep going back to biblical examples. And one of the things that comes out is somebody like the story of Moses, who was given the power to lead the people out of Egypt, right? And the servitude that was needed in that. By the time he was getting there, he had already gone through what he went through, but when he was there, the mission was the mission. There was no, we don't read about him acquiring massive wealth and retiring somewhere as they were on their way. In fact, he didn't even make it with them. He did what he was supposed to do to the end, you know, but he didn't have to, yes, acquire all of this. And the love of the people, I believe when you do things the way they're supposed to be done, automatically you'll be blessed from somewhere. You won't need to look for the blessing, it'll find you. So our leaders need to, I believe that as well, and allow it to happen for them in their lives, rather than be on panic mode of grabbing as much wealth as they can. Yeah, so gosh, before we move on, there's something I wanted. I'm seeing we have a few minutes to go, and just in line with misuse of influence and power. So once we have noticed that people are misusing their influence and power, as their quote unquote followers, there are actions that we can take. Because when you take action, even as an individual, as one person, it will impact the person who's misusing their influence and power. For somebody like celebrities, like I'd mentioned earlier, you can boycott what it is that they're selling, offering. You don't have to buy from there or from what. You can make a decision not to align yourself with their bottom line. That will affect them in a way that hopefully they begin to try and understand why and make the necessary changes. And I think with religious institutions, you can look for one that suits you. You don't have to be stuck in one place. Whether it's because you've been going there for a long time, the pastor is your friend, they told you to stay, whatever it is, as humans, you have the choice to move to something that works better for you, you know? And for you, Eno, in terms of celebrities and religious institutions, what actions do you think people can take so that those people in power in those spaces don't misuse their influence or their power?
Please come again.
So I'm asking, in spaces where we have celebrities as well as religious organizations, what can we do, or what actions can we take so that the people who are in power there do not misuse their influence or power?
All right. Like what happened in for the religious institution, what happened in the case of Rwanda, governance was put in place, accountability, true governance was put in place where they had people who would oversee the activities of the religious. I beg your pardon. Sorry about that. So people who oversee the religious heads activities. So when you have this in place where strong governance and another thing is education, people need to understand at what point power is being misused. They need to understand that when this is done, it means that their religious leaders or the influencers are going overboard. All right. So a lot of information through education is needed because people don't know. Like I said in my own experience when I was out, someone genuinely asked a question, said, "How do we do this?" For people who are having, bringing in income from criminal activities, are they supposed to bring their tithes to the church or something like that? And whoever it was that stood in the place of the man of God says, the Bible says, bring ye all your tithes. That the Bible did not specify. So if we have people who are well groomed, if you have people who are well trained, who knows what the Bible is saying truly in and out, and who are ready to teach the truth, at that time they tell you you are not supposed to bring a wrong offering to the house of God. Definitely these things would not happen. All right. So you have to educate the masses, educate the church, educate the followership of the influencers that this is what to do, or this is when your celebrity star has gone overboard, or this is when your man of God or your woman of God has gone overboard. So these are the things that I think should be in place, all right, for us to see less of the misuse of power and influence. All right. So that's that.
Oh, yes, I agree. Calling for transparency and accountability. Let people know when you do something, that you've done it and that they can really see that it's been done. I think that comes with building trust. Trust is, once you normally you start off with, in think of even when you're dating somebody, you just start off trusting them. You only stop when they break the trust. And then to get it back is a whole, it's a journey now. It now becomes a lot of work. And I think even for those people in influence who have power and influence, your followers and the people who look up to you will begin with trust. They will trust you. They will trust that you will say what you're going to say and do what you're going to do. And it's only when then you as an individual who's in power breaks that trust that it now starts to go downhill and you need to build it. So it's, yeah, I agree. People need to be accountable throughout for the decisions they're making and for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Goodness, this topic has layers. And I think for each section that we talked about, it's almost a whole topic on its own. But I'm seeing that today we've
That's true.
actually time, and there's so much more that we could talk about and share in this topic. Um, I'm not sure whether our Boniface wants to say something, because he mentioned he might want to share something with us. I will add him to the stage, and if you want to say something, you can go ahead. We'll give you a few seconds to decide. If not, we'll take you back down. But Boniface, would you like to say anything or add anything to this topic?
Uh, Not really that much. I'm just saying, just adding to the point that the power of the internet is very powerful. Yeah, I think now that the internet has gotten to a place where everybody and anybody can put out their opinion and say whatever they have to say, we can put those people who have power and influence in check, or we can rally together and say this is right, this is wrong, or you know, it's a very powerful tool, and we are now getting to understand how we can use it. We have seen what is happening in Kenya, and we can see, there's, like I said, as Valerie had said, there are cancellations that happen all through the internet. So now, as much as we have a lot of people who are abusing their power and their influence, there's also a silver lining now that we have something that can help us put our voices together in one place and amplify it even louder. So for me, that's all I can say for now. It's just let us not misuse the internet as it is right now. It's a very good tool. It has its negative sides, but its positives are also very good. So that's all I have to say. This has been a very eye-opening topic, and we learn more every day from this from this forum that we have here to table it. So thank you very much. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, there is the element of technology and how it affects influence and power. So that's a whole area that we can discuss, because we do need to look at the power of the internet influencing decision makings, getting information, verifying information. We've learned that there's a lot of information out there, so you need to verify. And in closing, in terms of our last comments, Eno, one of the things I don't want to call them our young people, because even me, I'm a young person, but our young people actually came up with, I don't know whether to call them settings or parts, these GPTs where you could ask about our finance bill if you don't understand it. So within Chat GPT, there's actually a section that is
Okay.
specific for our finance bill. And they went further and created one for corrupt politicians. So when we say a politician is corrupt, what does it mean? So you're able to type in the name of the politician, and it'll give you information on the scandal that they were involved in, the year, what happened, the outcome, all of that. So that you're being told somebody is corrupt, you can actually go on ChatGPT and find out how. And I'm like, wow, this is the beginning of accountability. You cannot hide anymore
Oh my
as a
goodness.
politician. Someone has sat somewhere and decided you will be found for your crimes. And here is the information. And I mean, that's
Yeah,
the world.
you cannot hide.
Yes. I spent a lot of time, because I know
Yeah,
people have
you can hide.
scandals, but I spent time in there looking, typing up different names, seeing, this person, and it's only political scandals, not their personal, five wives or whatever, but their political scandals,
All
corruption
right.
scandals. Yeah. So very interesting.
All right. So very interesting. With all this information we are having everywhere, that brings us to another. Sorry, we are rounding up, but what do we do with
Yeah.
all this information in Africa? You are able to find a GPT or other credible sources that your political leaders are involved in one scandal or the other. In other Senate crimes, with just maybe 1/10 of that or 100 of those accusations or allegations against them, they will be out. They will be unfit to, you know, uh, maintain any political position. But in Africa, you see a lot of this. You hear cases where a candidate has been involved in maybe drugs or cybercrime or whatever, and nobody can hold these ones accountable for them in Africa. So it's one thing to be able to access all this information from credible and incredible sources, and it is another thing to be able to use this information to our advantage. So this goes, this takes me to a point where I'm asking question to the youth. So for how long are we going to keep silent in the face of even from higher levels of authority is staring us every day, at the face and we can do nothing about it. So, yes, we see cases where we come out and speak in mass. We cry out going on in Kenya, and we are being bullied, we are being killed. Uh, what are we to do at this point? So this is where we are right now. What do you think? So, if you have any suggestion where you think that we can do something as a society when we are being bullied or we are being silenced, where our voice is not allowed to be heard, please leave that in the comment section. We would love.
Oh, yes, thank you, Eno. And just to reiterate what she said, we are open to learning, hearing, discovering what everybody thinks out there. So do share your comments, put them in the comment section. If you want to share a comment anonymously, you can send it through us in any of our DMs across the different platforms where you will find us. And yeah, we would be very happy to hear from you on your stance on how we can get people in different positions to cease misusing their power and their influence. Okay. So this afternoon, we'd like to just thank you so much for joining us for this talk. We thank you for supporting us and for listening to what we want to share. And we'll continue to bring more topics to you every week that really touch on what's happening in society. We want to dissect society and inspire change. So stay with us at We Table It. Remember, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're across all the platforms. Please remember to like our content, subscribe, and make sure that you're always up to date to the latest happenings here at We Table It. So, yes, Eno, thank you very much for really making this topic and this discussion so interesting today. And also, thank you, Boniface, for adding in. Boniface is our champion in the back end, making sure that everything flows well. And we thank you very much and look forward to having another session with all of you, our audience, in the coming weeks. So thank you and have a lovely afternoon.